In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It is Monday, January 2nd, and this is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Cotillo, and joining me in this lovely new year is one Sal Lito. What's going on, Sal?
Merry New Year, everybody!
Merry New Year?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Merry New Year?
Well, you guys should watch Trading Places then.
Oh, yes. That's good, Sal, actually. I'm impressed. Yes, thank you for reminding me. That's a great movie. I'm not, I will say this, and we're going to get way off topic right out of the gate here. We also have Steve Marcus with us. What's up, Steve?
What up?
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey.
Now, just be quiet for the next hour, please.
Hey, no problem.
Sal, I will say that train scene with the New Year party is not one of my favorites.
Did you get a look at Jamie Lee Curtis during that scene?
Well, of course. I mean, sure.
The instant favorite.
Instant favorite. All right. I mean, yeah, all right. Well, we'll move along. Anyway, so Happy New Year, everybody. It is the first show of the new year. The season has concluded. We are back, though. We've taken time for our New Year's. We've adjusted to the end of the regular season, and we're going to be here, as we said, bringing you a couple of shows a week throughout the playoffs and into the off season, getting you ready for next year and talking about playoffs, guys. It's playoff time. Anyone?
Playoffs?
Well, it was a good idea there, Sal. I just meant, you could give some input on the playoffs. No?
Now? Should I do that now?
Yeah, sometime tonight would be good.
Well, as we all know, my team's magical season took a bad turn a week ago and even worse yesterday. So I don't know that I have a whole lot looking forward to going to the playoffs, but at least I'll get to see what Connor Cook is going to be like. That's nice.
Connor Cook could be better than McGloin.
Yeah, no, that's definitely possible. And I do think that the Raiders do have a legitimate shot to beat the Texans. I know the Texans are having their own QB issues, and they have not been a great team this year. They won basically because other teams in the division defaulted. So I have some hope for round one. Not much beyond that. I think it'll be the big boys. Once we get into round two, it'll be the big boys who take over.
All right, so let's do this. We're gonna talk a lot about the playoffs on this episode. A little bit more of a relaxed schedule as we move towards the off season for fantasy purposes, anyway. But we're gonna talk about all the playoffs. So, Steve, before I get your input here, let me just go through the games real quick. So Saturday, we're gonna see as Sal mentioned, the Oakland Raiders take on the Houston Texans. Interesting game, I think. Both quarterbacks, as Sal mentioned, both quarterbacks going to have some issues there. So, it should be good. The Oakland having to drop down to the number 5 seed really hurts them in this. It's great for the Patriots, but now they have to travel to Houston. They don't get a home game. Who knows which quarterback they're rolling out there, but it should be an interesting game. Later on that evening, the Lions will travel to the Seahawks, who Lions also did themselves a serious disservice by not winning the game on Sunday night against the Packers, because now they are the 6th seed and they have to travel to Seattle. And then on Sunday, we'll see Miami take on Pittsburgh and the Giants take on Green Bay. Obviously, the first round buys for the AFC have the New England Patriots as the number 1 seed and the Kansas City Chiefs as the number 2 seed. In the NFC, it's the Cowboys and the Falcons as the 1 and 2, respectively. So, Steve, my question to you is, which game is the most interesting to you? What are you looking forward to since, your team's not in it?
Yes, that is correct. Still celebrating from winning the Super Bowl last year, you asshole. I'm looking forward to the Giants and the Packers game. I think a lot of people would say that's probably the best game on the docket this week. With both teams actually are pretty exciting. All these other teams, they have very regionalized fan bases for the most part. So I think that's the game that's got the most luster to it over the weekend. The Raiders and Houston game, like you said, it's unfortunate going into the season, and just a few weeks ago, both these teams kind of looked a little different. And then, like Sal said, Derek Carr not going to be there. Tom Savage probably going to be starting at quarterback for Houston. So there's a reason they are starting the weekend off with this game. But it should be a good weekend. And you also said, Kev, the Lions did themselves no favors by getting trounced by Green Bay. It was unfortunate that Washington lost that game and made it possible for both teams to make it into the playoffs from no matter the outcome from that Sunday night game. Now they have to go to Seattle and play the Seahawks. So it should be a very interesting group of games. But like Sal said, after this week, it's kind of all the big boys get back into play and things really get started. I'm excited this year. There's a lot of teams that weren't in it last year. And so I like seeing new teams, fresh faces every once in a while, and you're definitely getting that this season.
Yeah, I agree, Sal. So obviously you're looking for the Raiders, but outside of that, which one of these games intrigues you the most in round one here?
I would agree with Steve, but since he already spoke about that game, I would say the next most interesting game up is the Dolphins and the Steelers for me. I want to see all the Dolphins for real because this team played phenomenal for the second 2/3 of the season. I think early on, a lot of people dismissed them, that they were basically one of the bottom cellar dwellers in the AFC. And they went on quite a tear, losing only one game, I believe, over their last 10 to grab that last playoff spot. And it's going to be interesting for me to see if they can hang with the Steelers.
Yeah, it was intriguing. The game on the Patriots game on Sunday was interesting to me because obviously, clearly the Patriots went after it for the victory. They could have taken it a little easier, and like they did last year, but they clearly wanted the number one seed. They wanted the victory, and the Dolphins just did not seem like they could keep up from an offensive standpoint in my mind. So I am curious as well, Sal. That'll be the game that I'm most curious about in this playoff round one because I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the Steelers. I don't think offensively. I think their defense is solid. For the most part. But I do think that if they get down, they just cannot keep up because, between Matt Moore or even if Tannehill somehow comes back, I just don't think they have the offensive firepower to do it. You can't go into a playoff game depending on a 200-yard rushing game from your lead back. I just don't think it can happen.
Yeah, but I think that will be the game plan, right? Because the Steelers were better this year against the pass, and they have not been. They've been a little bit better second half of the year against the running backs, but they have not defended very well. So I think it'll be a heavy ground game, and I think you'll get a few of the guys mixed in. They got Drake, they have Williams. I think there'll be quite a bit of running by the Dolphins in this game.
Kev, I wanted to ask you, the Patriots being the number one seed, there's no chance that they face the Steelers next week. So do you think they really care who they face following this wild card weekend, knowing that it's either going to be the Dolphins, the Raiders without Derek Carr, and the Houston Texans? Do you think they have a preference or someone that they would least like to see when they get off their bye week?
I got to be honest. I mean, I think you're right. You're pointing out that none of these teams are as strong as they could be going into the game next week. So, I get your point. But if it were me, I mean, I think I'd probably pick the Raiders with a third-string quarterback and a defense that has been susceptible to the pass most of the season because they can get out quick. They can throw the ball around against them, and they can. I think that they'll take advantage of them. Houston's defense is still very good, and while I don't think they can score much, they could present problems for the Patriots defensively. And then the Dolphins is just always a tough game, especially when you're seeing a team for the third time. That usually does work in the Patriots' favor, so I'm not really worried about it. But at the end of the day, that's a matchup that I think I'd prefer to have the Raiders come in, to be quite honest. And Sal, sorry about that, but it's just you're not the team you were 2 weeks ago, obviously. So it makes a huge difference.
No offense taken. These things happen. I mean, they went into Sunday with a shot at the number one overall seed and finished with the 5 seed. Very difficult day.
To be honest, this could not have shaken out any better for the Patriots because, like you said, Steve, They will not have. I mean, in my mind, the two biggest threats to them in the AFC are the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they will not have to play both of them. There's no scenario where they would have to play both. So in my mind, that's great. You can't beat that. You only got to go through one of them, which is great. So.
Yeah, that's a huge deal because everyone's talked about those are the two most dangerous teams, and the fact that they seem to kind of be on a collision course with each other, and one of them is going to knock the other one off before they even have to play against New England is a huge deal for them, huge deal for Tom Brady and the Hoodie, who look like they might be on their way back to another Super Bowl.
One can only hope. So, and we're going to go through, from a fantasy perspective, we're going to talk a little bit here about the FLAFFL Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge, if that's the full name. I don't know if that's what we're going with, Sal, but you can probably tell us. For us, it's a way that we've started last year, and Sal's been playing for longer than that. But for us to keep the fantasy season alive throughout the playoffs, obviously, a lot of people will be in DraftKings, and you'll have your own playoff systems and things like that, but. This is a system which is a really fun format that we've been touting. And Sal, you want to give the details a little bit?
Sure. And the official name is the FLAFFL Playoff Fantasy Challenge.
Great. I knew it was something.
So basically, this combines fantasy knowledge and basically gambling, picking what teams are going to win, because you're going to want to take players in the positions that score more points on teams that are going to last longer in the playoffs, or who you believe are going to last longer in the playoffs. So some people might think the Chiefs are going to get to the Super Bowl. Some people might think the Patriots are going to get to the Super Bowl. I think what I've found in the past is that quarterbacks obviously score the most points. So traditionally you try to go with a quarterback that's going to make it to the Super Bowl, hopefully on both sides. And people might be like, oh, he's giving away strategy. It never works out.
So wait a minute. Let's back up for a second, because so there might be some people listening that don't know the actual rules and why you're talking about the strategy you are. So basically, what it boils down to is all of these teams are in the playoffs. You get to pick one player from each team. So you can't. You can only have the one player from each team. So you can't load up on Patriots because you think they're going to go on a run. You can't load up on Giants if you think they're going to go through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. So you get one from each team. So as Sal's mentioning, and it's basic scoring. We're doing what, full point PPR, I think.
Yeah, I was going to go over absolutely all of that. I had that all open in front of me.
Oh, sorry, you got into strategy. No, that's okay. You kind of jumped the shark. A little
premature there, Kev. Huh?
Well, I mean, look. Usually you talk about the rules before you talk about the strategy.
People know I'm a little all over the place. It's what makes me charming. So
why don't you tell us the rules, Sal?
All right. So essentially, you have 12 NFL playoff teams and you have 12 roster spots. So from those 12 teams, you must pick one and only one player per team to fill out these positions: 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, 1 kicker, and 1 team defense. Like Kevin said, you take Tom Brady, you cannot have a LeGarrette Blount. If you take Ben Roethlisberger, you cannot have Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell. You can only have one from each NFL playoff team. So last year we did it. I did it manually. We did it on the app. And I let people who made mistakes before kickoff change that. Once you set your roster, it's done this year on MFL. That's your roster. I'm not going to be able to go back and change anything. So it's very important to read all these rules, which are posted not only on the MFL site, but also at the link at the top of my Twitter page and also on the front page of falafelhouse.com. So the scoring system is going to be the MFL full point PPR scoring system. So if you're familiar with 4 points for a touchdown and 1 point for every 25 passing yards and 1 point for every 10 yards, it's pretty basic to that scoring system. Kickers, the only thing that might be different from if you do an ESPN league, for kickers, field goals of 30 or shorter are 3 points. Anything longer are only 0.1 per yard added on to that. Not a full point. So if it's 41, it's not, 4 points. It's 3.1. It depends on what the the distance is. It changes each time. But
now wait a second. Go back because I'm confused on that because I didn't.
It should have been 31, 3.1.
Right. So technically it is a full point, right? So because if you hit a 40-yarder, you're still getting 4 points.
Yes, but if you hit a 44-yarder, you get 40.
You get 4.4. So there is some additional yards there. Got it.
Yeah. So it's done a little bit different. Extra points are standard. Kick returns, punt returns. All defense scoring is essentially normal. 2 points for a fumble recovery, 2 points for an interception, 1 for a sack, and of course 2 for a safety or a return touchdown. So it's pretty basic scoring except for the full point PPR. But it really does open you up to a lot of possibilities strategy-wise. So what I was alluding to before is I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 117, somewhere in the 100 teens last year, and I believe I got 3 rosters that were the same. 3 complete rosters that were the same out of everybody. So you'll be surprised how different it can be. And just in case we do have people who tie, it's going to be a drawing for those people that win. We're just going to draw those names, however many people happen to tie at the top, and they will get the Scott Fishbowl prize. Last year we tried to do Super Bowl winners and point differential, and believe me, it gets crazy when you have to get down that far. So come on out, put your best team forward, and try to beat me.
So all right, so just for those of you who want to get in, who maybe haven't yet, you can check out Sal's Twitter page. He is at Lido Sal. You can check out my Twitter page at Wally Central, at Sid Skeet for Steve, and at Falafel House for the show's account. We'll make sure that Sal already has his pinned up there, the link to it. So the rest of us will make sure that we get that done as well. So you can go into any of our Twitter pages and check those out, but mostly just check out Sal's because he's a better follow anyway.
Steve, Kev, can I just remind everybody, if you've already registered, and we have a bunch of you guys who have already registered, if you're hearing this and you're waiting on an email, all emails have been returned, and your franchises are there. Please check your spam. And if you have not received an email and it's not in your spam, reach out to me either through Twitter or on a Fantasy Life app. Plenty of people have done that. And I will try to send you back the email individually. I've done that for some people, and it has worked. But there's a bunch of you out there who've registered and have not claimed your teams. We want to get everybody in there. We want to get as many people as possible. We love the competition. So please check all avenues.
Absolutely. All right, so Sal is the type of guy who's not very friendly and likes to keep things close to the vest as far as the teams that he's playing, as evident by the show we did last week where he wouldn't give out his DraftKings lineup. So he's
which
not
I won.
Which he did win. So he's not going to go through too many of his players, although I'm hoping he'll talk a little bit more strategy with us as we go along. But Steve,
I'll talk about my players, and I'm very friendly, you jerk.
Steve, on the other hand, is a very nice and delightful person who is willing to share his thoughts and his process, and he's actually put together his lineup already on paper. It's pencil, I believe, Steve, right? You haven't actually locked it in, right?
That's correct. It is not locked in. There's just, there's too many decisions, and it's too early in the week right now. I know as Gio, he's claimed on the app all week that he's not going to tinker with his lineup. He made his today, and he has vowed not to mess with it at all. But I've got mine written down. I'm looking at it, and there's just some things you want to think through all the way before you lock it in full bore. So, all right, so I've got it here, and I'm ready to talk.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll get to your lineup in a minute, your expected lineup in a minute. But give me your number one thought as far as what's the first thing that you're trying to do when you're setting out a lineup for this. Obviously, as Sal talked about, you get the one player, so you gotta figure who's going to play the most games, and you got to figure out that kind of stuff. So, what do you start with, Steve?
Yeah, I think Sal hit it right on the head. When you're getting ready to set your lineup, you can think of it 2 different ways. You can think of who's going to be playing in the final game, because at that point, everybody is only going to have 2 players playing. And you, like you said, you think of the positions that scored the most amount of points, and then you think of, okay, if it's going to be a quarterback, what teams do you think is going to be playing, or you think is going to be playing in the Super Bowl? You pick your teams, then you see who the quarterback is of that team, and so on and so forth. Or you can look at it as the games are starting this week. You've got potentially any teams playing this week, like the Steelers, that could go on a run and potentially play all 4 games. But it's so hard. There's so many different ways to think about it, because with the Steelers in general, who are you going to take from there? They've got Big Ben, they've got Le'Veon Bell, they got Antonio Brown. You can only pick one.
All right, so break it down for me. What position do you start with when you look at your lineup? What's the first position you pick? Is it a quarterback? Do you go right to quarterback? Because for me, I tend to go I want to get my defense out of the way. It's just kind of the way I kind of work backwards with it, because for me, the defense is kind of, as we all know in fantasy football, you can make good estimate, good guesses. There's always good, there's some good defenses out there, but at the end of the day, it's kind of ends up being a crapshoot in some regards too. So I like to get mine out of the way and figure out which team I'm not going to pick another player from, and that I'm not worried about them going on, and I pick a defense from that. But what do you do?
I didn't start with my defense, but I definitely had that same mindset. I didn't want to pick a defense, a really, the Chiefs, a really good defense. But you don't want to have you don't want to pick everybody from the teams that you think are going to be going on the longest. So that is a good position to pick a team that you actually think might have a good chance of performing, maybe getting a pick six, something like that, but ultimately was probably going to end up losing the game. So that's not the position that you're relying on points on going forward. So no, it wasn't the position that I started with, but definitely had the same mindset when I was picking which team I was going to go with there.
So Sal, what about you? Is that sort of, what do you start with? What's your first position that you're looking at? Do you just kind of go down the list and go, or?
Yeah, no, much like Steve said, I always look at what team is going to I believe will make the Super Bowl, and then I plan accordingly with quarterbacks. So I generally get those guys out of the way. So I will tell you that I do think that the Falcons are going to make the Super Bowl this year. And I'm having a little bit of a tough time deciding whether I want to go with Julio Jones or I want to go with Matt Ryan right now. So I am debating that. I do usually like to have my Super Bowl quarterbacks on my roster, and that's what I'm thinking right now. I don't know. I know you're going to probably have the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I'm just guessing.
I do actually. Yeah. If I haven't mapped out my full playoff schedule or full playoff predictions yet, but I do think the Patriots will be in the Super Bowl. I actually agree with you, Sal. I have the Falcons going as well, so I think it's going to be a Patriots Falcons Super Bowl this year, which should be an interesting one actually. So I'm with you. I would look towards either Tom Brady or Matt Ryan as the quarterback for me, as far as that's concerned. I don't know that there's any of the teams that are going to play 4 games as opposed to 3 that will be, in the Super Bowl. So I don't know that any
Aaron
team
Rodgers.
I don't see it. I don't see it this year.
I can't blame you. They're on a pretty big streak right now. I actually would have preferred them to lose this game to get that out of the way, because now they're going to have to win another 4 more if they're going to get through it. But he's definitely a guy that he's been on such a tear lately that I want to get some of those points going through the playoffs.
My exact thought, Steve. Sorry, Kev. My exact thought that they've been playing basically without a net. They've been playing playoff games for 6+ weeks, right? So for me, the team that going into the playoffs that has had a really good season but hasn't had any really long streaks is the Falcons. So that's why I'm liking them, because they've had to really fight for things the whole season and really came on strong the last 2 to 3 weeks to secure that number 2 overall spot. So excellent point, Mr. Steve.
And here's the thing. Well, here's the thing for me. If I had to pick an upset this week, it would be the Giants beating the Packers. So I'm nervous about them winning this game in general, let alone going 4 games and winning a Super Bowl.
Definitely is going to be a good game, and if I was picking an upset, mine would be the Raiders over Houston. But that I don't know if you could really call that an upset. That game is just so weird.
It's a wash to me. I mean, that's
It's just a weird game. But this Giants, you're absolutely right. I'm not guaranteeing that the Packers are going to win, but if they do, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the reason why. Their run game just is non-existent. Every time they get Ty Montgomery going, he vanishes and he disappears, and they just don't ever use him ever again. So basically, if they were playing the Bears 4 times in a row, you could go with Ty Montgomery. He'd probably be a solid start. But I think that the Packers are he is all of their offense right now, and I'm rolling the dice with them, and that they're at least going to get through this round, and then we'll see what happens from there. I wanted to ask you guys how you are playing the Cowboys and who your selections, how that process is going with who you'd select to the Cowboys.
It's a tough one, right? I mean, you gotta, obviously the bye week throws it off. If it weren't for the bye week, I think you would go Ezekiel Elliott, no question, in my mind. But that first week playing without a running back might actually hurt you. Although, in my mind, the running back is kind of one of the positions you can take a little bit less. So maybe that is the strategy I go. Particularly with the full point per reception. So, yeah, I guess if it's me, I'm still going Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think that what he can do in 2 games, since I don't have them going to the Super Bowl, what he can accomplish in 2 games is greater than anybody on that team can. And I feel like you're going to lose some other running backs in earlier weeks, and you're going to have some teams moving on that don't necessarily have top running backs. And then you got the Falcons, of course, where you're going to have to choose between 2 running backs. So if you choose to go that way with the Falcons. So for me, it's definitely Zeke on the Cowboys side.
My biggest concern or my biggest question or my thought process behind the Cowboys are that, and much like the Patriots that don't have a chance to play the Steelers next week, the Cowboys don't have a chance to play the Seahawks, which for some odd reason are the team that I would feel most comfortable with the Cowboys playing against. It looks like, if the Lions upset the Seahawks, then the Cowboys would be playing the Lions. That'd be a pretty solid matchup. We just saw what happened between those 2 teams, but I think everyone's pretty confident that the Seahawks will be able to take care of them, which means that the Cowboys are going to be playing against either the Giants or the Packers. And I don't like their chances really against either one of those teams. So I kind of am taking the Cowboys to lose in 1 game. So I am not putting much faith in Ezekiel Elliott because I don't think the Cowboys are going to be around very long.
There will be much hate against you tomorrow.
Yeah,
that I do not doubt.
You just angered the Cowboys fans. I
Showcase in KS44. Bring it on, boys.
Listen, I actually can't argue with you as far as the one and done thing, but again, I come back to the fact that if you're going to lose a position, right? Obviously, throw out kicker and defense because we're while they're in this challenge, we're not really worried. We're not going to worry about them as much, but I think if you're going to lose a position, you want to lose a running back, right? Don't you want to lose a running back over your wide receivers or your tight ends, which are getting a full point per reception, or especially your quarterback? So if you think they're going to be one and done, you still know he's going to eat in that 1 game, either way, especially if it's against the Packers.
Yep, that's very true. It's definitely something to keep in mind and something that you got to think about. It's just like we said at the beginning into this, there's so many different things that you can think about and so many different things you can convince yourself of and what should be done, or it's everything. That's why it's so fun. I love this challenge.
So let's get into it then. We obviously we're into it a little bit, but let's just get straight to your lineup, Steve. Let's not pull any more punches. You're going to tell everyone who you have. So let's go with the quarterbacks first. Who are your 2 quarterbacks?
My 2 quarterbacks are Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
So those are my 2 teams. If I had to pick right now, I'd pick the Patriots and the Packers to make it to the Super Bowl. So those are my guys.
All right. So Sal, give me your thoughts on that. Obviously you said you like the Falcons in the Super Bowl, but you weren't sure about Matt Ryan. So what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady as his quarterbacks?
Yeah. So even if Aaron Rodgers gets eliminated in an NFC Championship game, you still got 3 games out of him. So it's a good pick. Like Steve said, the guy's played just uncanny here down the stretch. 18 touchdowns, I believe, in his last 6 games and 0 interceptions. So he's played unbelievably. So if you want to get a guy 3 weeks out of a quarterback, I don't think you can go wrong if that's the choice you make. And if he does make it to the Super Bowl, you get 4 weeks out of him. So I understand that. I do agree. Unfortunately, I believe the Patriots have the road paved to get back. I do think that the Chiefs will give them some trouble. If they could have found a way to get that game in Arrowhead, I might have leaned their way. But I think they're excellent choices.
Yes, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback number 1 in fantasy this year, just as one of us predicted preseason.
Which one was it? I don't remember that.
I don't. Me.
Yeah, that was Sal, right?
No, I don't believe
I picked
so.
Andrew.
Interestingly enough, for those of you playing along at home, Matt Ryan comes in at number 2 and Tom Brady comes in at number 3 in a points per game average for the season. So
Tom Brady, dirty.
Yeah, Well, we're talking, obviously I'm talking points per game, so he's probably much further if you're talking about fantasy points totals. Look, to be at 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns with 2 interceptions is a pretty solid season, even if you are missing, even if you play a full 16-game schedule. So, but I digress before you guys call me the homer and start making fun of me for that. I like your picks for quarterback too, Steve. I like I said, I would probably lean more towards Matt Ryan instead of Aaron Rodgers. I just think that what he's done this season is pretty incredible. I actually think he's got a great chance to win the MVP. And I think that it's worth it too. He's had a hell of a season. He's thrown the ball phenomenally. 38 touchdowns against seven interceptions. He's 2 touchdowns behind Aaron Rodgers. And while Rodgers is on the hot streak, I do think that the defense of the Atlanta Falcons is playing a little bit better than Green Bay right now, which is why I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. And so for me, I guess the question there is you're probably looking at most likely 3 games for both of them, right? Because it should be an NFC championship, right? That's the way things would shake out, I believe. So, in my mind, I still give the slight edge to Matt Ryan, but I would go Tom Brady on the other side as well. So would you say? Oh, sorry, I was going to say if it's not Aaron Rodgers from the Packers, is Jordy Nelson really the only other guy?
Yeah, is he the only one that you can really trust if you're not going to take Rodgers?
I don't think you can go Montgomery. Although, Sal, I guess the question is, we should get that out of the way. How is MFL treating Montgomery? Do you know?
It's a great question. I believe I had him in a couple of MFL leagues that had flexes, and I had him in flex position this year. So I will have to look at that and make sure. But I think you got to go Ripkowski here, no?
Yeah, my boy Ripkowski. He rips off a great game last night. See what I did there?
They really should just spend one entire game giving him the ball all night long. Just all night long.
I don't see why they don't. I really don't. I mean, you gotta give him the shot, right?
Yep. Free him. Free Ripkowski.
Free Ripkowski. I'm checking it out right now, by the way. I'm gonna see where Montgomery is. So go on with your thoughts there. Steve, while we're talking Montgomery, who do you have for running backs?
All right, so for running backs, my 3 running backs, everyone remember, you got to pick 3 of these guys. I went with Le'Veon Bell, the best running back in the NFL, Jay Ajayi, and Latavius Murray. And that kind of goes in line with, running back seems to be, along with defense and kicker, if you're going to lose a position, I think those are the 3 positions that you would want to lose first because of the half-point PPR, although Le'Veon Bell, the reason I picked him is because of how often he is used out of the backfield. So even if I only get him for 1 game and he's upset, which I don't think is going to happen, I think he's at least going to get 2. He's going to be a bell cow, and he's going to be a guy that as the offense moves through him, even a little bit more than Antonio Brown when they don't need to rely on the passing game as much. So he is a guy that I think is in heavy consideration for everybody's lineup. But the other 2 guys, Jay Ajayi, obviously, these 2 guys are playing each other this first week, so I'm going to lose one of them. And then Latavius Murray, I decided to go with him because I do agree with Sal. I think the Raiders have a chance to beat Houston this week. And so I think Latavius Murray is going to be a pretty big part of that if they're going to do so, relying on the rookie quarterback. So I think, but if they were to lose, again, it's a running back. I'm losing another running back. So if that were to happen, not the worst thing in the world. So those are my 3 running backs. Those are the 3 guys that I went with, and it was tough. It's tough. Picking one guy from every team is hard.
Yeah. So just to be clear, sorry, Sal, before you get into your thoughts there.
I was going to say the same thing you're going to say, so I'll let you say it.
Ty Montgomery is listed as a wide receiver, not a running back. So
there you go.
So that's very interesting. I think he'll be largely passed up, not overlooked, but passed up properly.
I mean, to Steve's point, I think Jordy Nelson really was the only other player you can, even if he was a running back, I think he's the only guy you want on Green Bay besides Aaron Rodgers, and that's who I would throw in there at wide receiver since I would not use Aaron Rodgers as we talked about. So
what's interesting here is Devontae Adams has had a good season. We all have to admit that he's not Jordy Nelson.
I don't have to do anything.
You'll do it, damn it. You'll like it. But some people will take the strategy, and it's not a bad strategy, that a lot of people will go with Jordy Nelson. So let me go with Devontae Adams and see, does he get more looks? Is he not double covered? And does he have a better playoff? So it's not always necessarily taking the best player. As we've watched the NFL playoffs over many years, guys step up and make names for themselves, and it's not always the, above all number one guy that is the best. So it's another part of the strategy you should look into when setting your lineup.
It's a great point.
Specifically last week, sorry, just real quick, Kev, last year, pardon me, just trying to pick between Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. You had Denver in the playoffs, you had both of those guys, and you're trying to pick which one of those, and it comes down to the final week, Denver's in the playoffs, and the difference comes down to who has Demaryius Thomas picked and who has Emmanuel Sanders picked. So it's just, it can pay to fade a certain guy in favor of another one, but it could also really hurt you too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. The contrarian pick, particularly when you're talking about making sure you get guys that others don't have. I mean, you got to figure, for example, the strong opinion's going to be Tom Brady, right? We just talked about it. He's going to be a pick, even though Sal and I are leaning more Matt Ryan and Steve's leaning Aaron Rodgers. We all three of us agree on Tom Brady, but you could say contrarian, I'll take Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan and then go with LeGarrette Blount from the Patriots, because there's a solid chance the guy scores like 6 or 7 touchdowns throughout the playoffs. Just based on game flow and how things go, he could plunge it in from the 1-yard line that many times and be a good contrarian play. So you definitely want to consider things like that. I still think I'd go Brady, but just another option to consider.
And what that also does is that, depending on your confidence in, Aaron Rodgers facing off against Matt Ryan in an NFC Championship game, it, almost guarantees that you get at least one quarterback into the final. I mean, at this point, nothing's a guarantee, obviously, so it could be a little risky, but if that matchup does end up happening, you're at least going to have one of those guys in there. So picking 2 quarterbacks from the same conference could kind of up your chances of having at least one quarterback in the final game.
Good point. All right, so let's go back to your running backs real quick. I think Latavius Murray is a good choice because, again, I think it's unfortunate, Sal, but the Raiders could potentially be a one-and-done here, just based on the quarterback play and having to travel to Houston. And sadly, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win that game. To me, like I said, it's a coin flip, but I think either way, they're going to have to run the ball a lot because they're going to have to take pressure off, whether it's McGloin or Connor Cook. They're still going to have to do some work to take pressure off of them. So I think Latavius Murray is going to get a healthy dose of carries. So I think that's a good pick there. And Ajayi, like you said, Steve, I think they have a good chance to be a one and done as well. So and Sal, to your point, they will feed him the ball in this one because it's kind of where the Steelers are susceptible. So I think that's a great pick as well. And who was your last one there, Steve?
Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Really no explanation needed there.
Yeah,
and I don't think that the Dolphins can beat the Steelers. I really don't. So, I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. It's the playoffs, but I just don't see it happening. So I would tend to lean towards Lev Bell getting at least 2 games, which in this format gets you a pretty significant amount of points. So.
Yep, very few running backs are used in the passing game as much as Le'Veon Bell. So also getting that full PPR, he seemed kind of like a no-brainer. No-brainer pick for me there. Are we ready to move on to my wide receivers?
Sal, any thoughts on running backs? Any other guys that you would consider? We talked about Ezekiel Elliott in this one. Who else? I think we talked about Matt Ryan, so you're probably not looking Devonta Freeman, although Julio Jones is a guy that you were considering as well. So, but anyone else on these rosters that you might consider throwing in there?
Yeah, I'm interested to see who Steve takes from the Texans. If he does believe that the Raiders will beat them, then he believes that the Texans will go one and done. And I have an idea, I think, who I know he's taking. Not DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm interested to see that because Lamar Miller, I guess, is an interesting play there. Also, at running back, as a team that might have only 1 or 2 weeks in the playoffs. But if I take a guess, Steve, can I take a guess?
I think he's going Osweiler. Right?
I think he's playing. I think he's taking Fancy Hat for Dorowitz.
Not a bad play there. Not a bad play.
That is actually incorrect. I'm not taking Fancy Hat.
I am going to say that you are taking the pick that I would take from the Texans, and that would be the Houston Texans defense.
That is correct, Kev.
Yes.
I am taking the Houston defense because I think they're going to be one and done. Yeah, I'm trying to pick a team that I'm thinking is going to lose.
Also,
but might have a chance.
Connor Cook.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, if they don't lose, it's probably because their defense has done something pretty well. Maybe get a pick six or something like that. So, yeah, I went with the Houston defense there.
Hey, last year, I don't know if you guys remember this, but in this format, the Chiefs, they won 30-0 against the Texans in the first round. And a handful of people, a good amount of people, had the Chiefs defense. And they put up, I believe it was a 10-point. Yeah, it was 10 points in the first round. And I think people were very excited about that, but they got them a goose egg the following week. Yeah. So that's the risk you run if your defense does make it to the second round. You're looking at having a player that's legitimately going to get you 0. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we just skip down to the defenses really quick. So is that kind of the consensus? You want to try to pick a team that you think is going to be one and done, because like you said, Sal, you don't want your defense, they're more weeks than one. So which out of all these teams is there the Dolphins the only other one that you'd kind of feel comfortable being like, okay, this team's probably going to lose this week?
I think you're on it with the Texans personally, but the second team would be the Lions.
Interesting. Against the Steelers and the way they've played, I can't argue with that. Going into Seattle, that's actually not a bad pick. I would lean more towards, I would probably rank them Texans, Dolphins, Lions, if I had to rank a 1, 2, 3. Like I said, I'm leaning more towards the Texans myself, although I could definitely be convinced of the Lions now that I'm thinking about it. The Dolphins, only because I think they're one and done, but going against the Steelers offense, they're probably not going to get you many points. So even at one and done, you're going to have the goose egg there. So, all right, so let's keep moving. Let's keep it going. Steve, who do you have for your wide receivers?
All right, wide receivers. I have got one, Julio Jones. I think everyone enjoys Julio Jones. He's pretty good.
Is he only one? He plays like 2.
Julio,
he does play like 2. Well, he's 2 1s.
If you
numbers
could call
2
him
1s
by his correct name,
the
Julio.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize. My other wide receiver is Odell Beckham Jr., and then my third wide receiver is one Doug Baldwin from the Seattle Seahawks. So Julio Jones is kind of I didn't go Matt Ryan. I don't want to try and pick between the 2 running backs, so it kind of left me with Julio Jones there. Not too upset about that. Odell Beckham Jr., this one was pretty tough for me because I did pick Aaron Rodgers, and they are playing the Giants, so I'm guaranteed to lose one of these guys in the very first week. So I picked a guy that if, whoever wins, I'm going to be very happy having the guy from that team that goes on. And so I went with Odell Beckham. I feel like he was kind of a no-brainer pick from that team. And then Doug Baldwin. Not a big fan. Didn't really want to have to pick any Seahawks players here, but if the Seahawks are going to win, their run game and their offensive line just absolutely terrible. They're going to have to pass the ball. The biggest issue I had with this one was trying to pick between Doug Baldwin and Jimmy Graham. So I went with Doug Baldwin here. Where do you guys think you're going to lean when it comes to picking someone from Seattle?
I'm surprised Steve, based on how close he was with Russell Wilson this season, didn't go in that direction.
I thought he might go that way too. I really did. Look, I think I'm leaning Jimmy Graham from the Seahawks because I think of the tight end choices, I think you got Travis Kelce and I think you got Jimmy Graham. As if I'm looking through the list of other tight ends, I am not pleased. So, those are the guys that I think. Martellus Bennett is obviously a decent option as well, but I don't know. I think Jimmy Graham and Travis Kelce are the 2 you probably gotta take. So.
I'm on board with you there, Kevin. But I think that you have to look at Witten, because if we all don't think that the Cowboys are going to go to the Super Bowl, a tight end is a position that basically after defense and kicker, the next guy you want to get out of there is probably your tight end. Guys like Kelce, who could take over a game and put up huge points. You like them to last longer, but it's definitely the next position line for me that I usually try to pick the teams will go out soonest.
So, since we're talking about wide receivers, I'm just kind of flipping through the MFL page that has all of the lineups. By the way, Sal, once you set yours, everyone will be able to see it anyway, just to be clear here, in the interest of full transparency.
I haven't said it. I mean, you act like I don't know these things.
I'm just saying. Strangest wide receiver pick I've seen so far, Kenny Stills is on there. Anyone?
Wow.
Anyone for Kenny Stills?
The guy scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. So if he's going to ride that hot streak, then potentially he scores one in this game. So I could understand where they're coming from. Would he have been a guy I chose? Probably not, but I'm just trying to get on their logic.
Yeah, no. I'm not, and certainly I'm not. I'm not messing with anyone's lineup. You really never know with these, to be quite honest with you. So
that's a GPP play right there.
But that's exactly the type of contrarian play that And look, if you're going to talk Miami, who else besides Ajayi and maybe the defense? But we talked about going up against the Steelers. You probably don't want to do that. So if you've used your other running backs, you might be in trouble there. You might have to go with a guy like Kenny Stills. Yeah,
it's not something that I would probably want to do. I don't want to rely on that passing game too much. You never know each week. It's going to be Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, all three of them. Kenny Stills, you don't know. Cal. Who's Cal? I don't know who Cal is. Sal just said that he's had the touchdowns in 4 straight.
Good kid.
Yeah.
Good kid.
Yeah. Sal doesn't even know where California is.
Oh yeah, we're west.
I know where California is. Right on the other side of the Mississippi.
It's all right. So did we determine which was worse, you not knowing where California is or Steve not knowing that Buffalo is in New York? Is that...
I did know it was in New York. Come on.
But let's also go back to the fact that I wasn't sure if San Diego was above a different city in California. Not that I didn't know where California was.
And Steve's was kind of a twofer because not only did he say that Buffalo was traveling to New York, but he was wrong because they're also traveling to New Jersey. So
that's right.
Kind of a twofer.
Hey,
there.
my finger's traveling from the downward position to the upward position.
All right, so same,
awesome,
just like Matt Stafford. Anyway, let's keep plugging away here. Sal, give me your thoughts on other wide receivers. Who else would you be considering besides the ones that we've talked about so far?
Yeah, so we spoke about Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. We already discussed that. I think you have to start to think about who you would take from the Chiefs. I think that most people are going to go with Travis Kelce. So if you want to do something different and you don't want to have the same guy that everybody else is going to have to cancel it out, you might want to go with Tyreek Hill in this situation. The guy has scored in every way possible. He's done it consistently. He's shown that he can basically win a game single-handedly. So he's a guy, if I think the Chiefs are going to go to the AFC Championship game, which I do, you're going to get at least 2 games out of a guy like that. And he, like I said, he could turn a game on its ear in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, I will say this: the scoring format also favors guys that will score on special teams, as you get touchdown points for both punts and kickoff returns. So definitely something to consider there as far as the guys that you may throw into these lineups. Obviously, the Julio Joneses of the world, the Jordy Nelsons of the world don't typically return any of the work on special teams anymore. So it is something to consider. I don't know that I could go with Tyreek Hill given the usage like we've talked about. He's scored all over the place. I get that, but as we've also talked about, he's just not getting the overall volume that you want to see out of a guy like that. And I also don't think you can pass up on Kelce. I think while he's we talked about the contrarian play, and I think Tyreek Hill would certainly be going that way because I do think Kelce's going to be in there. Kelce's also one of those guys you don't want to miss the boat on, in my opinion. It's kind of like the David Johnson theory, right? You know everyone's going to play David Johnson, but do you want to be the one who doesn't get the 40-point game? You can't really afford to miss that. So, and Travis Kelce, to me, at that position in these playoffs, is that guy.
Yep, and then also on top of that, Sal, you're talking about for you after defense and kicker, that tight end is kind of the one that you're looking to. If you had to pick someone to get eliminated, that would be the position. By them being on the bye week, if you're choosing Travis Kelce, you're automatically getting a wide receiver or a running back from a different team to fill one of those other positions. So you're getting Travis Kelce when he's playing, but this first week you're getting to use on all of these other positions that typically might be scoring more points. Just another reason that Travis Kelce might be a good pick for them. If you cannot tell, I did choose Travis Kelce. I'm a fan.
I think we all are on Travis Kelce. Believe me, I'm not saying.
Whoa!
I'm just throwing. Yes, I'm on him. Goddammit, I'm riding that cowboy. I'm just saying. I'm throwing out some other ideas out there because 75% of the people are probably going to pick Travis Kelce. So if you want a shot at separating yourself, you might have to look for ways to do that. I certainly would not tell you to go away from Travis Kelce.
Yeah, scrolling through these lineups, he is in the majority of lineups, no question about that. So, Steve, who's your other tight end then that you're going to throw in this lineup with him?
Sal actually alluded to him a little bit ago, and this was my question with the Cowboys. I actually did go with Jason Witten here.
Wow.
I passed up Des Bryant, passed up Ezekiel Elliott. I went with Jason Witten. I do think that the Cowboys are going to be a one-and-done team. So I think that
you like driving at home, don't you? You're really pissing people off.
I don't know, really creating some enemies here tonight. So I'll say it one more time. Why not? I think they're going to be behind. I think they're probably going to end up playing the Packers, and I think that they're going to have to throw the ball to try and keep pace in this game. So I think that means that Jason Witten is going to end up probably getting a lot of looks, getting a lot of targets for this game, and so that's why I went with him. And I'm hoping real bad it doesn't come back to bite me, but that is the direction I went there. And then just to round it off, since we went defense, Houston, the only team I have not picked anyone from, my kicker is Matt Prater.
Yeah, I can't argue with that there. I mean, as far as the Lions are concerned, when we start looking through their roster, I don't know who you're gonna pick besides Prater. I really don't. He's kind of locked in there unless you want to go, defense like Sal said. But he's kind of locked in there because there's no one else, right? Can you trust? Not the way Stafford's played the last few weeks with the finger. Ever since that finger injury, he's definitely struggled to throw touchdown passes and score for fantasy purposes. And that obviously has hurt Golden Tate. That has hurt Marvin Jones, who's been non-existent pretty much the entire season after the first 3 weeks. And there's definitely not a running back I'm trusting here. Zach Zenner, while he's had a couple of nice games, he's not a guy you're throwing in there. You can't trust, in my mind, you can't trust Riddick if he does play. So I agree with you right there, Steve. I think Matt Prater's the guy. Sal, are you on Matt Prater too?
No, I mean I tried, but he kicked me off. Get it?
Hey!
Wow!
All right.
Yeah, I mean it seems
drop
logical.
for that.
It's either Prater or who kicks for the Texans. I don't even know.
Oh yeah,
Nick Novak.
Novak, yes, very good.
No, nothing. You don't want him?
Yeah,
Sal.
I don't want him. You could have him. He's too fat for me.
I don't know what that is, but
that's from the honeymooners. The marathon was on yesterday. Cut me some slack.
All right. So. That about wraps it up as far as Steve's lineup. Any final thoughts on strategy or anything that you want to throw out there, Steve?
Good luck. No, actually, I just gave you my entire lineup, so no.
Good luck. No.
Good luck and don't win.
That's right. I mean, if you want to copy my entire lineup, you're only going to do as good as me. So you're going to have to take some shots somewhere else to topple. I was in the finals last year, damn it. I was one of few contestants
I'm just gonna
that
say
were going to win last year.
The history of this particular season would suggest that you do not want to copy Steve.
That's right. This might be the fade list to end all fade lists.
Right,
like if I just mention somebody, like do not put them on your team. You'll probably do a lot better.
Yeah. Sal, any thoughts on strategy that you think we missed or we glossed over that you really want to drive home?
I don't think so. I think we've hit on all the things that you could do, some of the things that are more traditional to do, and some of the more contrarian things to do. One lineup per person. So please, if we find out that you you put it on the two email addresses. We're going to have to throw you out on both of them. But I think after discussing it tonight, I think I'm going to go a little more contrarian this year. So I think I'm going to go. I think, just haven't set my lineup yet. I haven't really even opened it up. So I think that I'm thinking a little contrarian.
All right,
this
it'll be nice
playoff.
to see Sal at the bottom and Steve at the bottom with him. No, listen, just a reminder, if you guys want to get in on this, you can check out any of our Twitter pages. We'll, mostly Sal, at Lido Sal. He's got it up there pinned already, so just click the link, you put in your contact info, and he'll spit you out an email. He's actually got a monkey sending emails for him, which we found was quicker than Sal doing it himself. So, yeah.
This guy is get off me.
Yeah,
proficient little chimp.
So, listen, check it out and get in there if you haven't already. You got less than a week now to get in and set your lineup, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of it keeps things interesting throughout the playoffs. There'll be a lot of interaction on the app. If you go to the Fantasy Life app, you can check out the Falafel House chat. There'll be a lot of interaction, and particularly on Saturdays and Sundays on game days. So it'll be a lot of fun. So definitely get in there. And for that's about it for today. So Steve, what do you got for a final thought?
I just want to thank you all for sticking around for this post-season Falafel House Fantasy Football podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Falafel House. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Falafel House there. And we are going to be keeping the fun going all season on falafelhouse.com, so be sure to check that out and read all the good stuff that is coming out there. And that's all I got. Sal.
Yeah, so you've heard Kevin mention all of our Twitter handles. What I'd like you guys to do out there, if you're going to continue to listen to the show, and we hope you do throughout the postseason, reach out to us. Send us an idea of some of the things you might like to hear us talk about in the offseason. Some, fantasy football strategy and draft strategy and stuff like that we could talk about even a little bit earlier and keep it going and keep the interest flowing. Just hit any one of us up or get on the Fantasy Life app and jump in a Falafel House chat like Kevin said. Let's talk fantasy, and we'd love to make you guys happy at home. So let us know what you want.
Sal personally would like to make you happy at home. So listen,
I have cocoa.
So listen, I want to thank everybody for listening as well. And to Sal's point, definitely reach out to us. We have some good stuff planned for the off season, for the playoffs and things like that, of shows that we want to do. But it's your program that you listen to. So whatever you guys want us to talk about, we can make Steve say whatever we want. So definitely get out there. I also want to beg and plead for you to go to iTunes and review us, because still the most recent review is the Sal is the greatest man on earth, or whatever it says, and it hurts me every time I look at it. So please get out there, go to iTunes, review us. You can say anything you want, just don't say anything good about Sal. And we'll be back. As we mentioned, the schedule for the offseason might fluctuate here and there. We're kind of working out and see what's best for everyone. Right now, we'll be releasing on Tuesdays and Fridays, so we will be back with you on Friday. And until then, Steve, hit the button.